Hey YouTube, this is Joel. Today, should I say tonight rather? Tonight is something new. It's going to be called the garden analogy, where I tie toiling and also relationship together. And I pray that God be glorified through this video, and that people will know by the end of this video what a relationship is after the connection with the garden analogy. So, we're outside. Beautiful trees in the background. Okay. Start off like this. A relationship, a friendship, a marriage, even though I've never been married, engaged but never married. Anyways, they all have something in common. Growth. Here's what I mean. When you're a friend with somebody, you get to know them, right? Well, the same thing goes when you're in a relationship, where you guys consider yourselves courted, or if people still try to follow the not the old-fashioned trend, but the traditional boyfriend-girlfriend type mentality. You guys get closer, you grow. Same thing with an engagement. There's growth. Marriage. There's the honeymoon phase. Then there's the, the newlywed phase. That is honeymoon phase. Then after that, and you have the pain phase. Or hopefully, if you establish a relationship with God, both of you, in a marriage, then you don't really have it at all. But I said they all have something in common. Look at the sky. Beautiful sky. Well, think about it. When I said all those things have in common is growth. Take, for instance, the ground, where I'm standing on right here. I'll even show you. See, there's the ground. Notice there's nothing growing just yet. But I'll also take you to a garden. The garden would show its growth. In other words, you have to have a foundation in order to plant. I'm going to do the best I can with this video. I will probably make a second part to it, possibly. So anyways, our relationship is like a garden. See, the garden is the beginning of something beautiful. Like a friendship. Okay, so the garden, say if there was a garden underneath that tree over there. Or shall we say, there was a garden under that tree. Right where I'm pointing at. Here. I'll let you guys take a look. You see that? Right there. Right there. Okay, so that tree, for instance, what if that tree fell? Well then, someone would probably take it off. They would probably take it away somewhere. Well, what if somebody decided to turn that tree into a little mini garden? Let's say a flower garden. We're not going to talk about vegetables or fruits. I'll talk about that in the next segment. The whole stage of a beginning garden, you have to have the right soil. Whereas in a relationship, you have to have the right foundation. You have to have the right soil. The right soil being, do you know what you want? Do you know what your garden, you know what you want in your garden? Almost kind of like, do you know what you want in a partner? Think of it this way. It's summertime, or it's about to be, and it's early in the morning and it's sunrise. And you've just decided to plant a garden. Well, for one thing, you would want to make sure it's sunny. The other thing is, it's probably possible that there has been so much rain that it's muddy. So you want to put on the proper clothing. Kind of the same way that you want to accolade the correct motivations and the correct the correct things in a relationship. So you decide to plant a garden. Well, first off, a garden needs to be leveled. This is kind of like the balance in a relationship. You have the person you're interested in, their parents. Then you have your family, your parents. Then you have your friends. Then you have church, obviously. Work, obviously. Probably, work meetings or whatever. So just like finding the balance in a relationship, you have to find the balance on how you're going to level your garden. Think of it this way. To everything there's a season and a time for every purpose under the heavens. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. So the whole idea, you gotta find a spot that's level. So let's go do that. This is a demonstration analogy that is going to combine a lot of stuff, a lot of things, plant-wise, to basically explain the difference between perfect relationship, or let me rephrase that, a good relationship and a bad. This segment, I'm going to focus more on the good. Here we go. So, we want to find some level ground. We'll look below. There's some level ground. Right about here. Okay. So, that ground looks pretty level, right? So say, right next to that tree, this is the garden. Okay, so there's grass. Well, obviously, you need to dig. Because digging is hard work. You have to have the right tool. Just like in a relationship, you need to have the right resources. And what I mean is, a gardener has to have a shovel. And he also has to make sure that there's nothing else in the ground that's not going to disrupt the garden. I will talk a little bit about that, but I will save that for the next segment. The difference between a good and a bad garden. Part 1 of 2. This is the difference between the good. This is about the good garden. So, you have your garden. Let me stand up so you guys can see it right there, right where I'm standing. Okay. So again, you need to have a shovel in order to dig. Just like in a relationship, you have to have the right resources. You have to know what it is. What's your intent? How do you want to make this a good relationship? Just like, how do you want to make this a good garden? Well, gardener needs a tool, needs a shovel. Just like to finding the right person. It's almost like as you're digging and digging to make this garden, to find common ground, you're searching for someone who's leveled, doesn't have it all together. Because let's face it, the garden's not perfect. And ever since the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the forbidden fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we won't see a perfect garden until we all get to heaven. And what I mean is, until we all are in the new heavens and new earth. But I at least want to try to explain a little bit of how a good garden and a synopsis of heaven and a synopsis of a good relationship should be, and what it should be. Where the next video I will focus on what it should not be. So you need a shovel to dig. Obviously it's going to take some hard work. Then you decide how big do you want your garden. Well, I'm going to demonstrate. You see that down there? Those are my feet. I'm going to move them 10 paces to the left. Then I'm going to move them 10 paces upward. Then I'm going to move them 10 paces going straight. 10 paces backward, just right back to where the foundation. Where each step counts as 2 paces. Here we go. Okay, so basically, it's a square. Notice that where I walked is all leveled. Nothing's in the ground. I'm not actually going to plant anything. This is a demonstration. A demonstration that is an analogy. So the whole idea, let's compare that to a relationship. A relationship, you're looking for the right person. Well, once you decided, like your garden, how big you want it, it's almost like going to... By the way, guys, this is a video to anybody that's curious about relationships in general. So anyways, once you made your garden, just like a relationship, you're looking for your potential partner. So not everybody's going to have the same ideal partner, because just like a relationship, every garden is different. Some are up on a hill in their level, some are down on the bottom of their level. It's almost as like you're digging. But then there's another thing, and you need rain. Just like in a relationship, you need proper tools. And one of those proper tools just happens to be your personality. Your personality tells everything about you. Just like a garden, what you plant. Like you put flowers in the ground, what's your personality? So let's say you want to plant red flowers. Well, red stands for love. So then you need compassion. Then let's say you want to plant green flowers. Well, green flowers are for growth, so you want to be a hard worker, obviously. And then you have yellow, which stands for sunlight. So you want to be kind of a laid-back kind of person. Kind of the same thing with the garden. Not every garden is the same, just like not every relationship is the same. It's really common to understand. Okay, so now you kind of maybe have understood what you want to put in your garden, just like you've decided what you want in a partner. So then comes the next thing, and that's deciding if the garden's big enough. If the garden's big enough, then that also means what you're looking for in a partner is enough. However, if you want a bigger garden, then that means you're looking for more qualities in a relationship. Obviously, the ones that you've used aren't enough. I should know. So, then what do? Well, then of course you make it bigger. You add additional flowers. Or in a sense, in a relationship, you add extra characteristics. In other words, you keep growing your garden until you've decided that's the kind of garden I want. Then you have to make sure the foundation is right, that nothing's going to penetrate it, that nothing is going to destroy it, or nothing is going to stand against it. Just like in a relationship. The characteristics that you have in a person, that you want in a person, in a partner, you have to find out if they're logical. You have to find out if it's common. That it's not too out there. You have to make sure that it's logical, that all the things you want in a partner will match. Because just like a garden, if your garden does not match, then the things you want in a partner won't match either. So then comes the next question. You got to plant down soil. Well, just like in a relationship, you have to decide, almost kind of like with garden, where am I going to get the soil? Well, of course, you go to the right place to build your foundation. Just like in a relationship, or looking for a potential partner, you would then ask yourself the question, well, where would I meet this person that has all these things? And keep in mind, if you grow your garden too big, too wide, and it falls, just like what you're looking for in a partner, not everything that you're wanting in a partner is going to be there. So with a garden, you want the essentials. You want the basics. The best way to plant a garden. Just like in a relationship or actively seeking a partner. You want the basics, the essentials. If you grow it too big or it becomes uneven, it's almost like you're adding additional things in what you want in a relationship. And then when you meet the person, they're not who you thought they were. And just like your garden, it will turn against you like your worst nightmare. Kind of like how Satan deceived Adam and Eve in the garden. It's sad today that most people know what they want in a relationship. Some people it takes 5 years. Some people it takes 10 years. Some people have never even made a garden. You get what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, some people have taken all their life to make their first garden. Just to make their first garden. And it's not even planted. The soil's there, but they keep changing it because they're not satisfied. Just like actively looking for someone. They keep changing of who they want in a person because they're not satisfied. And because they're not satisfied, not only have they not found the right person, but just like the garden, it's not even planted. It's just laying there. So you see the two problems? If you have the basics, just like to a garden, and you have the basics in what you want in a partner, which is somebody that works hard, obviously, someone who's compassionate, obviously, kind, sweet, loving, compassionate, and most importantly, hardworking, and is a believer. Believes God. Believes in something real. And is not afraid to give up. If you have the basics essentials, your garden is ready to be planted. You're ready for step one. Then you need to get your soil and spread it all across where all the things that you've done that is dug up. You've got all the dirt and you put all the soil on there. Almost kind of like how you're deciding where do I want to meet this person. So honestly, all you need is the essentials to start a garden. Just like actively seeking somebody, all you need is the essentials in a person. Because one wrong move and the garden's gone. Just like actively seeking someone. One wrong move and you can basically say, well, that person doesn't exist because they're not who I thought they were. And it's true. We're constantly tricked by the deception of this is enough. I said I was going to make this 2 parts, but I think now I should combine it to 1. So once you have your basic foundation, of course, yeah, you start to plant. Start to do all kinds of stuff. Again, you've got your yellow flower, you've got your red flower, your green flower, your flowers that are colors. Kind of like your characteristics with a personality. A lot of them stand for love, faith, integrity, intelligence. Well, the good news is, it's sunny outside, and you're ready to start planting. Now, what can we use as a pretend shovel? How about that stick down there? So see, this is a demonstration / analogy. Yeah, the stick actually broke, but imagine it was really a shovel. You would dig out your foundation, plant your soil, and you would decide what flower would go in first. Just like actively seeking someone, you have to decide what is the most important aspect, the most important attribute that I'm looking for in a woman, or in a woman's stance, what is the most important attribute that I'm looking for in a man? Well, the first thing, if you're going to choose red or pink, compassion. Because all you need to do is put a flower in there that isn't going to look good with the rest of the flowers. That would be a characteristic that you don't want. Now, I'm talking about pride. I'm talking about egotism. I'm talking about seduction. A flower that looks like has been gourmeted. Am I saying all flowers like that? No. But it's the analogy. So perhaps you put in this luscious flower in the garden. Be careful. Be careful the way it's planted. Because you could be planting deception. Just like in an active relationship, you could be planting deception in your life. I've done it, trust me. Let's go through the colors of flowers. It'll make sense. Red is the color of love. So again, compassion, number 1. Green is the color of growth. Hardworking. That should be number 2. Blue is the color of calmness, but also faith. So being strong and not giving up should also be in there. Then you have yellow, which is almost kind of like being laid back. It's not bad, but you don't want to become lazy. So see, for every color out there, there's a characteristic, there's a personality trait that goes along with for the specific person. Okay. As Psalm says, if the foundations were destroyed, what can the righteous do? Let me explain that with a garden. I'm going to take one of these sticks on the bottom, and I'm going to basically step all over the flowers. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Yes, I know, none of them are actually there. This is why this is a demonstrative analogy. You'll see what I mean. Watch. Okay. Let's look at the ground. If there were flowers there, they would all be stepped on. Now I'm going to explain what happened. Your garden was set. It was perfect. Okay, so it needs water every day. It may not look like the best garden, but it's good enough. And God loves the garden. God's the gardener, and you're the farmer. Or let me rephrase that. He is the gardener. You're the helper. Because God used Adam to attend to his garden. It wasn't Adam's garden. It was his, but he allowed us to rejoice and be able to enjoy his creations. So back to the flowers. They've all been stepped over. Well, if that were to happen, which there's nothing growing there, but that's why this is, again, a demonstrative analogy. If that were to happen, all the flowers would be dead. Every single one of them. And with dead flowers, the garden would then be washed away with rain. All the mud would come up, everything would be gone. If you're not careful with who you choose, with who you want to partner, and you allow some type of distraction to fall on your garden, on your foundation, you have just sabotaged what you want in a person. Because all you would have to do is want to choose something better when not waiting. Let's backtrack a little bit. Before I stepped on the flowers, they needed time to grow, obviously. So, once you plant the flowers, you have to, of course, water them with water. Lots of it. Then you have to wait till the next day. You do it again. And then lesser and lesser time, it needs water. If it doesn't rain once in a long while, you need water. If it rains quite often, you need water. But just like a good gardener, sometimes we have to wait. For planting crops, let's say potatoes. Just like a good gardener, where we planted potatoes. They take a while to sprout up. Sometimes, maybe months. So just like waiting for the right person, while you're cultivating your garden, you want to make it the best garden that you've seen. And not care about what other people think about your garden. But about what you've seen. So, with that in mind, you want to find the right tools that will become essential to creating a wonderful garden. Again, it's not perfect. The garden is never perfect. Because you have to worry about the things on the outside, like thistles and thorns. Things that will try to choke the garden. Just like when you're actively looking for somebody, or if you're in a relationship. So, basically, just like you're finding the right tools that will become the foundation for the right garden, and have a good harvest, that means you also, and I mean also, when you're looking for somebody, you want to become the right person. You want to be the right person for the right person. So just like you're trying to make your garden the best, you want your garden to become the best garden there is. No, it's not going to be perfect, but you at least want to give it your best effort. When it comes to actively seeking somebody, you have to put a little bit of effort in. You have to know what you want. Think about what happens when you're indecisive. Okay. How do you explain that with the garden analogy? Simple. Let's say today you want to plant let's say a daffodil. And the next day you say, nah, doesn't look good. How about a rose? Then a couple of days come along, and you decide again. No, how about a rose thorn bush? 5 days pass, and you think again. No, that's not good. How about a grape tree? 5 days pass again. And then you say, no. What about a plant that will grow tomatoes? Alright, let me stop there for a second. Do you see the pattern? So many few days set apart, you change and change and change and change. It's almost like you don't know what you want to plant in your garden. So it's almost like the growth of the garden is being delayed because you don't know what you want in your garden. Just like when you're actively seeking for somebody, if you constantly change your mind about what you want in a person constantly, you have become indecisive. And indecisive makes it hard for people to find out what you want. There are people out there in this world today that have ambition, but then their ambition changes constantly. Then they'll go to say that they don't have ambition. Without ambition, you don't go anywhere. Just like if you don't really know what you want to plant on your garden, how is your garden going to grow? You're wasting your time if every single week or 5 days or 3 days you see extra plants all across the store. Each day you go back, it's as if you're digging out a plant just to put a different one in. You're digging out a plant just to put a different one in. You're digging out a plant just to put a different one in. That is the same thing that we are doing when we become indecisive. It's just like, I want to be with somebody that's sweet. 5 days later, I want to be with somebody that's tough. 5 days later, someone that's a little athletic. 5 days later, nah, she's got to be a little laid back. And girls, you could say the same things in a guy. So it's not one-sided. It's vice versa. 5 days later, I wanted to be a farm girl. Now I'll switch it around. Girls will look for guys. 5 days later, he's got to be a country boy. 5 days later, nah, I'd rather live him in the city. 5 days later, is he from Iceland? 5 days later, he's got to be really fit in the gym. 5 days later, nah, I don't mind if he doesn't have a job. 5 days later, I don't even care if he has a car. 5 days later, I don't know who I want. Have you seen the problem? Just like a person that plants, replants, plants, replants, plants, replants in the garden, just like in a relationship or what you're actively seeking, you don't know what you want to plant. So therefore, you don't know what you want in a relationship. Trust me, I've been there, and I most definitely will admit this. Unless you know what you want in your garden, as looking at the ground at the bottom here, unless you know what you want in your garden, you are never going to have a garden. You will never have a garden. Just like, unless you know what you want in a partner, you will never find the right partner. You will not find your other rib if you're a guy or a girl. Because obviously we have 2 ribs, but technically, we have one, and we're looking for the person that has the other. Like the guy is looking for the girl that has the other man's rib, like the girl's looking for the guy that has the other rib. So if you choose to change what you want in your garden all the time, you don't know what you want in the garden. Just like the same thing, if you constantly change what you want in a person, it's obvious that you don't know what you want in a person. James 1:8 says this: "For a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." And I should know that because I used to be. For example, I liked short girls. Then, later, I liked big girls. Then, later, I liked pretty girls. Then, later, I liked goth girls. Do you see the pattern? Do you see my pattern? It changed. It changed. It changed. It changed. But I must say today, I finally know what I want in a partner. Because if I don't know what I want in a partner, then guess what? I can't have a garden. And every time I try to grow one, and I see something new, distraction, every time I see something new, distraction, it only makes the garden grow, tarry longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. Just like it will take longer to find that person. When you're building a garden, when you're planting a garden, you have to have faith. When you are actively seeking somebody, you have to believe that it will come to pass. Because God's promises are sufficient. They are new every morning. Lamentations 3:20. So, honestly, here's what I'm going to conclude. Your garden's perfect. Perfect as you want it to be. You have met the right person. You all have been together for, let's say, 3 years. Your garden has had wonderful crops for 3 years. No problems, none whatsoever. Alright. 3 years and a month pass by. Suddenly, you have scavengers in your garden. You have worms that eat plants in your garden. You have thorns. You have thistles in your garden. And you have briars and thorns in your garden. And it's almost like you wonder, what did I do to my garden? It's a good question. That's a very, very good question. Is it possible that in your relationship that you allow distraction? Is it possible that in your relationship with your partner, is it possible that you've allowed some distractions in your life? Did you change your mind about the person? You guys aren't married yet, but you're thinking about it. But you wonder, why is there thorns and thistles, just like in the garden, in your relationship? Just like a garden that has these things, briars, thorns, and thistles, we too can fall temptation to seduction, pornography, alcoholism, premarital sex, homosexuality, rape, depression, suicide. Being sexually molested, hanging around with the wrong crowd, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so forth. Methamphetamine. Even wearing too much makeup. Not knocking the girls, but I'm just saying, hey, distraction. Put it to you this way. The garden, God gave us the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were to dress it and to keep it. Then Satan, the snake, came along and told Eve and Adam that they wouldn't die. That they would be as gods, knowing good and evil. And their eyes would be open. Because of their disobedience, my brothers and sisters, because of their disobedience, they were forced to leave the garden. Imagine if I could never come back to this spot ever again. I can right now. But imagine where you're standing, wherever you are watching this. Imagine something tragic taking over your life. Just like the thorns and the thistles in the ground choke the garden, the plants, the weeds have come up, and it's destroying the garden. And you don't understand why it's destroying your garden. You say to yourself, but I captivated it. I cultivated it. I dressed it. I kept it. Just like in a relationship. We pray together. We Bible study together. Don't understand what's going on. I hold the door open for her. He treats me well. He treats me good. He knocks on my door. He turns the car off to go up to the steps to knock on my door to see if I'm ready. He doesn't leave until he says to my family that he'll have me back at a decent time. It's like the both of you are saying, what happened? What happened? What happened? Well, just like your garden, something caused your garden to habit all these. There's no thorns, thistles, but imagine it. Just standing all around me. If there was thorns and thistles and briars, and all these pointy things coming out of the ground, hurting me like crazy. Of course, they're not there, but this is an analogy, and this is a demonstration. And all the flowers are right there, and there are grapes, and there are pineapple trees, and there's apple trees, and they're growing up. But these vines and these thorns, they're growing up too. What are those things going to do? They're going to destroy the hard work, the labor of your garden. The same thing will happen if you don't keep your relationship in check. Trust me, I did the same thing. That's why you can never take your eyes off the garden. Every single day. Don't take your garden for granted. If you love to plant, if you love flowers, if you love beauty, if you love creation, don't take your eyes off the garden. Just like your relationship. If you value her, or the guy, or the girl, if you respect him, if you appreciate him, do not take your eyes off your relationship. And more importantly, if you're praising God for the person you're with, if you're thanking God for the person you're with, if you're Bible studying, you're praying with your partner, you're doing simple things, you're staying in the world, but you're not of the world. Do not take your eyes off your partner. I've done it, and it has destroyed me. Almost. Many times. I'm being honestly serious. Love is not a field to play in. Love is beautiful, yes. But if a garden is destroyed, just like a relationship, there is consequences. There is heartache. There is sadness. There are tears. There is pain. There is aggression. There is vengeance. Divorce, my friends. And you're probably thinking, Joel, you've never been married. I've seen the dangerous side of marriage. I'll admit, I've never seen a good marriage except around my friends. Not in my life. That's why I've never been married. But just like a garden that I want to make someday in a relationship, I've got to keep the thorns, the thistles, the briars at bay. They cannot exist. They cannot exist if I am to be loyal and faithful. Of what I've learned from gardening, a gardener always takes care of his crops, his flowers, he waters them. To a flower, watering a flower, it's almost like getting $1 million. We don't even know how thankful, how happy the plants are. And you're saying, Joel, he can't talk. Yes, but there's a purpose for the plants. There's a purpose for the garden. Garden of Eden wasn't just a garden. There's a reason for the Garden of Eden. It's where Adam and Eve were made perfect. They were the first marriage. My brothers, my sisters, stop letting distractions, just like your garden, just like a garden, stop letting thorns and thistles and briars in it. It will destroy it. It will choke it. I mean this out of love. What do I mean by distraction? If you love the person, don't get interested in another girl. Unless they are friends. That's a different story. Yes, you need helpers to help tend the garden. And it's always good for an extra hand or 2 or 3 or 4. But that's not what I'm saying. If you want to keep your garden going and growing, do not let thorns, thistles, and briars inhabit it. Because if it does, your garden's destroyed. And if that happens, your marriage, your relationship is destroyed or suffers a loss. That's why you can't take anything in life for granted. Just like